ChatGPT processed over 10 billion conversations in its first year. 10 billion. But here's what's wild. If you asked 100 people how it actually works, maybe 2 could give you a real answer. Most think it's searching the internet. It's not. Some think it has a giant database of facts. Wrong again. Others assume it's true artificial intelligence that understands language like humans do. Not even close. The truth is simultaneously simpler and more mind-bending than any of those explanations. And understanding how ChatGPT really works isn't just intellectual curiosity anymore. It's the difference between using it effectively and wasting your time with garbage outputs. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you the actual technology stack behind ChatGPT, why it hallucinates, what's really happening when you hit send, and most importantly, what this means for how you should actually use it. Let's start with what happens the moment you type a prompt and press enter. Your message doesn't get sent to a search engine. There's no database lookup happening. Instead, your text gets broken down into something called tokens. Think of tokens as syllable-sized chunks of meaning. The word ChatGPT is 2 tokens. The word understanding is 3. This matters because ChatGPT doesn't actually read words. It reads tokens. That's why it has context limits measured in tokens, not words. GPT-4 can handle about 32,000 tokens, which translates to roughly 25,000 words of context. Once your prompt is tokenized, something fascinating happens. Each token gets converted into a vector, basically a list of numbers that represents that token's relationship to every other possible token in the model's vocabulary. The word king and queen would have vectors that are mathematically close together. King and democracy would be further up. This vector representation is how the model understands meaning without actually understanding anything. It's all just mathematical relationships in high-dimensional space. Your prompt, now a sequence of vectors, gets fed into the neural network. And this is where the magic happens. Or more accurately, where the math happens. The model starts predicting what token should come next. Not what sentence, not what paragraph, just the very next token. It looks at all the tokens you gave it, processes them through billions of parameters, and calculates a probability distribution across its entire vocabulary of 50,000 possible tokens. Maybe there's a 40% chance the next token should be the, a 20% chance it should be a, and so on. It picks one based on these probabilities, with a bit of randomness thrown in, which is why you get different answers to the same prompt. Then it takes that token, adds it to the sequence, and predicts the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Token by token, it's building your response in real time, with each new token influenced by all the tokens that came before it. The architecture that makes this possible is called a transformer, and it's genuinely one of the biggest breakthroughs in artificial intelligence history. Before transformers arrived in 2017, AI language models were terrible. They could barely complete a sentence coherently. The previous generation used something called recurrent neural networks, which processed text sequentially, one word at a time, in order. They had terrible memory and couldn't handle long-range dependencies. If the beginning of a sentence mattered for the end, they'd forget it. Transformers changed everything with one key innovation: attention. And no, that's not a metaphor. Attention is the actual technical term. Here's what it means in practice. When a transformer processes your prompt, every single token can attend to every other token simultaneously. The word at the end of your prompt can look back and pay attention to relevant words at the beginning. It's not processing sequentially. It's processing everything in parallel, weighing which parts of the input are most relevant to which other parts. This happens through something called self-attention mechanisms. The model creates 3 different representations of each token, called queries, keys, and values, and uses them to calculate attention scores. Which tokens should pay attention to which other tokens? The model figures this out dynamically for every single forward pass. This is stacked in layers. GPT-4 reportedly has 96 layers of these transformer blocks. Each layer refines the representation, building up increasingly sophisticated understanding of context, grammar, semantics, and relationships. By the time your tokens reach the final layer, they've been transformed through billions of calculations that capture incredibly nuanced patterns about how language works. This parallel processing is also why transformers can be trained efficiently on massive datasets. Recurrent networks had to process sequentially, which meant they couldn't take advantage of modern GPU architecture. Transformers can process thousands of tokens simultaneously across thousands of GPU cores. That scalability is what made GPT possible. Now let's talk about how ChatGPT learned to do all this, because the training process is a 3-act drama. Act 1 is pre-training, and it's the most computationally expensive phase. OpenAI took a neural network with billions of parameters, basically billions of knobs that can be adjusted, and initialized them randomly. Then they fed it enormous amounts of text. We're talking hundreds of billions of words scraped from the internet, books, articles, websites, code repositories. The task during pre-training is brutally simple. Predict the next token. Show the model a sequence of tokens with one missing, and make it guess what comes next. When it guesses wrong, adjust those billions of parameters slightly to make the correct answer more likely. Do this trillions of times. This phase reportedly cost OpenAI over $100 million in compute alone for GPT-4. Thousands of high-end GPUs running for months. After pre-training, you have a model that's incredibly good at predicting text patterns, but it's not particularly useful as an assistant. It might complete "the capital of France is" with Paris, but it might also continue with a hotly debated topic if that pattern appeared in its training data. It's a text completion engine, not a helpful chatbot. That's where Act 2 comes in. Supervised fine-tuning. OpenAI hired human contractors to create demonstration data. They'd write prompts and then write ideal responses. These human-written examples taught the model what helpful, harmless, and honest responses look like. But supervised fine-tuning alone isn't enough, which brings us to Act 3. Reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. This is the secret sauce. Human raters rank different model outputs for the same prompt from best to worst. This ranking data trains a reward model, which learns to predict what humans will prefer. Then, that reward model is used to further train the language model using reinforcement learning. The model generates responses, the reward model scores them, and the language model updates to produce higher scoring outputs. This is why ChatGPT sounds conversational and helpful instead of just spitting out random internet text. The RLHF process aligned it with human preferences. Here's the uncomfortable truth that explains ChatGPT's biggest flaw. It has no concept of truth. None. Zero. It's not designed to retrieve facts. It's designed to predict plausible next tokens based on patterns in its training data. When you ask ChatGPT a question, it's not thinking, "What's the true answer?" It's thinking, "Saw." And even that's too generous a word. What tokens typically follow this pattern? Sometimes those align. If you ask for the capital of France, the pattern overwhelmingly points to Paris, which happens to be correct. But ask about something obscure, or something that happened after its training cutoff, or something where the training data contains conflicting information, and the model will still generate tokens. It will produce text that sounds authoritative and well-structured, because it learned the pattern of authoritative-sounding text. This is hallucination. The model is confabulating, filling in gaps with plausible-sounding nonsense because that's literally all it can do. It has no mechanism to say, "I don't know," unless that response pattern was reinforced during training. It has no way to check facts against a ground truth. There's no database, no search engine, no verification system, just pattern matching on steroids. This also explains why ChatGPT is confident when it's wrong. Confidence in the output is just a function of how high the probability was for each token. If the pattern strongly suggested those tokens should come next, it outputs them with the same authoritative tone it uses for everything else. The model cannot distinguish between things it has strong evidence for and things it's making up. Some people think hallucinations are a bug that will be fixed. They're not. They're a fundamental characteristic of how large language models work. You can reduce hallucinations through better training, retrieval-augmented generation, and fact-checking layers, but you cannot eliminate them without fundamentally changing the architecture. As long as the core mechanism is predicting next tokens based on training patterns, hallucination is inevitable. This is why you should never use ChatGPT for anything where accuracy is critical without verification. It's a drafting tool, a brainstorming partner, a code assistant that you review. It's not a research tool, not a legal advisor, not a medical reference. Let's go deeper on tokens, because understanding them changes how you use ChatGPT. A token is roughly 4 characters in English, but it varies wildly. Common words are often single tokens. "The" is 1 token. ChatGPT is 2. But uncommon words or names can be broken into multiple tokens. Brzezinski might be 4 or 5 tokens because it's rare in the training data. Numbers can be tokenized weirdly too. The year 2023 might be 1 token or 3, depending on how it appears. This has real implications. First, your context window is measured in tokens. If you're using GPT-4 with a 32,000 token limit and you paste in a 20,000 token document, you only have 12,000 tokens left for conversation. The model will start forgetting the beginning of your conversation once you exceed that limit. Second, the model's performance on a task can vary based on how many tokens it uses to represent key concepts. If a technical term in your field gets broken into 5 tokens, the model might struggle with it because it never learned that concept as a unified thing. Third, tokens directly affect cost. OpenAI charges per token, not per word. GPT-4 costs about 3 cents per 1,000 input tokens and 6 cents per 1,000 output tokens. If you're building an application that uses ChatGPT's API at scale, optimizing your prompts to use fewer tokens can save thousands of dollars. Here's a practical tip. You can check how your text gets tokenized using OpenAI's tokenizer tool. Paste in your prompt and see exactly how many tokens it is. You might discover that verbose prompting is wasting tokens on unnecessary words. Concise, clear prompts often work better and cost less. Another implication: ChatGPT's knowledge cutoff is really a training cutoff. The model doesn't know about events after its training ended because those events weren't in its training data, so it never learned the token patterns associated with them. It's not that the information is locked away somewhere. It literally doesn't exist in the model's parameters. Understanding tokens transforms ChatGPT from a mysterious black box into a predictable tool with clear limitations. So what does all this technical understanding mean for how you actually use ChatGPT? First, stop expecting it to be perfect. It's a probabilistic text generator, not an oracle. Every output needs human judgment. Use it to draft, not to decide. Let it generate the first version, then you refine, fact-check, and improve. Second, understand that prompt engineering matters because of how the model works. You're not giving instructions to an intelligent entity. You're providing context, that shapes the probability distribution of next tokens. Examples in your prompt are incredibly powerful because they establish patterns for the model to continue. If you show it 3 examples of the output format you want, it'll likely follow that pattern for your actual request. Third, be specific about what you want because vague prompts lead to generic outputs. The model will default to the most common patterns in its training data. Ask for something specific and unusual, and you'll get more interesting results. Fourth, use ChatGPT for what it's actually good at. It excels at reformatting, summarizing, brainstorming, explaining concepts in different ways, writing drafts, and generating variations. It's terrible at math without plugins, current events without retrieval, and anything requiring perfect accuracy. Fifth, if you're building business processes around AI, build in verification layers. Don't let ChatGPT's output go directly to customers, publish directly to your blog, or make automated decisions without human review. The hallucination risk is real. Sixth, keep conversations focused. Because the model processes all previous tokens in the conversation to predict the next one, long rambling conversations degrade quality. Start a new chat when you're switching topics. Finally, remember that ChatGPT is improving rapidly, but the fundamental architecture isn't changing. GPT-5, when it arrives, will likely be the same transformer-based, token-predicting, pattern-matching system, just with more parameters, better training data, and more sophisticated fine-tuning. The limitations we discussed won't disappear. They'll just get less noticeable. Here's what you need to remember. ChatGPT is not intelligent in any meaningful sense. It doesn't understand your questions. It doesn't reason about answers. It doesn't know facts. What it does is predict sequences of tokens based on statistical patterns learned from billions of text examples. And it turns out, that's enough to be incredibly useful. The transformer architecture allows it to process context in parallel, maintaining coherence over long passages. The massive scale of training data means it's absorbed patterns from virtually every domain of human knowledge, and the RLHF fine-tuning makes its outputs align with what humans find helpful. But it's also why ChatGPT will confidently tell you nonsense, why it struggles with basic math, why it can't update its knowledge in real time, and why it sometimes contradicts itself. These aren't bugs to be fixed in the next update. They're fundamental characteristics of the technology. The smartest users understand this. They treat ChatGPT as an incredibly sophisticated autocomplete, not as artificial general intelligence. They verify outputs, especially for important work. They understand token limits and craft prompts accordingly. They know when to use it and when to rely on human expertise or traditional search. As these models get more capable, that understanding becomes more important, not less. Because the better ChatGPT gets at sounding authoritative, the easier it becomes to forget what's really happening under the hood. And that's when people make expensive mistakes, publish hallucinated facts, or trust the model with decisions it was never designed to make. You now understand ChatGPT better than 99% of people using it. That's a genuine advantage. Use it wisely. And that's how ChatGPT actually works. No jargon, no hype, just the real technology. 3 things to remember. 1, it's predicting tokens based on patterns, not retrieving facts or reasoning. 2, hallucinations are inevitable, so always verify important outputs. And 3, understanding these limitations makes you dramatically more effective at using the tool. If this breakdown was valuable, subscribe to Signal Feed. We cut through the AI hype every week to explain what's actually happening in artificial intelligence, what it means for your work, and how to stay ahead without getting buried in technical papers or marketing nonsense. Next video drops Thursday, and we're tackling Google's Gemini Ultra, the model that supposedly beats GPT-4. I've tested both extensively, and the real story is more interesting than the benchmarks suggest. See you then.